And so then once again, I'm just like, I just can't catch a break.
So let me get this straight. This is the exact same day as a year later from your daughter's surgery?
Yeah.
You are now tuning in to the Roughnecks Podcast with your host, Cole Nixon. Much love.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Roughnecks Podcast. We are back with another guest episode. I think it's a Friday that I'm releasing this, but another guest episode. And I've kind of gone through all the announcements lately, so I'm not going to go through the whole kit caboodle of all the things that we got going on. But other than that, that's really all there is to talk about. So without further ado, Michael, welcome to the Roughnecks Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Is this your first podcast? Have you done a podcast?
No, I've watched Jason Tomlinson film a couple at the CrossFit gym, but outside of that, no experience participating in it.
It's once you get past, I will say, everybody's like always like the microphone, the camera, and everybody's like, holy crap, what is going on? I'm like, you'll eventually realize like about, I'd say like 15, 20 minutes into it, it's just like we're having a conversation. You kind of forget the camera and microphone are even there.
It's like the first play of any game. Yeah. It's kind of take everything in and then you just settle down.
Exactly.
Get into it.
But I like to kick off the episodes by allowing the guests to give a background on themselves. I tried to do backgrounds back in the day, and I never could cover everything or like really. I'd rather the guests give it. So kind of just tell the Roughnecks listeners who you are.
So I'm 35, born in Tampa, Florida. My mom and dad. My mom's deceased. My dad's still alive. Parents met my parents are both outdoor amusement people, which is simply they're carnival people. We own amusement rides, concession trailers, game trailers, all the stuff that you would see at a local festival or fair. My family does that for a living. So they met. Both families were into it. My dad's dad got into it after World War II. Couldn't really find a job. Did it a little bit before he enlisted. And then my mom's family, my grandfather was her grandfather had like pony rides, and so it just kind of developed through there. And both from the state of Ohio. My dad was born in Columbus. My mom was born in Cincinnati. So just kind of run that same circuit, cross each other at different festivals. So I'm pretty familiar with people's hometowns, different things, little odd things that I've learned through the years of going to different festivals.
So you grew up like around that?
Yeah.
Still around it?
Still do it on the weekends.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So my grandmother, well, I'll give a little bit more of my background and we can go into that. So the plan was my dad has a brother who's in the retired from the DEA. He was kind of the role model in our family if you wanted to do something outside the family business. So early on, that was the goal, was go through high school, get to college, get a degree, go into the federal government, go into one of those agencies. So born in Tampa just because before my parents had kids, they would do the carnival work up here in the summer and then go to Florida in the winter. And that was just kind of the routine that they ran. I was born in January, so I was just born in Florida because they were down there.
So you really could have been born in
either one. Yeah, I could have been
either
one.
It just depended on when.
Yeah, so ended up going to school in Cincinnati, elementary school, moved up to Hebron, went to Lakewood starting in probably 5th grade. Then from there, stayed in Licking County with my dad. He got remarried. My parents got divorced. My dad remarried and moved to Licking County, so I ended up here. And then from there, graduated from Lakewood. Went to Rio Grande for 2 years, then transferred to Ohio State, finished up at Ohio State in 2012. And then I had my first daughter. I had my daughter, Layla, in 2012. And then kind of goals changed, things, the target moved a little bit in priorities in life. So then worked at Licking County government in the EMA department from like 2013 to 2017. Took a sales job from like 17 to 18. Kind of always when it comes to the work world, I guess contentment kind of gets to me a little bit. You know, it's like 35, I could probably be doing more. I'm 30, I should be doing more. In hindsight, the county would have been. I should have probably stayed at the county. I mean, benefits and different things like that. Things
Yeah.
you don't really think about when you're younger. You know, and you see other people, you know, making a lot of money, posting cars and doing things, and you're like, I should probably be doing more with myself. And I think everybody battles with that nowadays about, you know, that social media. You see somebody post a car and you're like, man, I went to school with them, like, or something like that. And you end up having all these internal conversations with yourself where you're like, what am I doing? You know, I should be doing more.
Right.
So I ended up leaving the county, took a sales job, realized that that wasn't for me. And then got hired by Licking Knox Goodwill in 2018. Been there ever since. It's a great organization. We can get into Goodwill. I know that's you know, everybody kind of misses the understanding of Goodwill, and you know, part of what I like to do is, you know, kind of give people some insight about Goodwill and what all the good stuff that we do in the counties that we serve.
Right.
So I've been there since 2018. I was married from 2016 to 2020, got divorced. I have a son out of that marriage. He's 5. He is my life. He's everything, really. You know, I thought I enjoyed sports as a kid and those things, but watching him develop a passion for stuff, I tell people I like sports. He loves them. Like, it's a different type of energy from him when it comes to sports and things like that. So yeah, that's my background. I got a degree in criminology from Ohio State. Currently getting my master's from OU. I'm about 5 classes from being done with my master's. Should wrap that up by this time next year. So yeah, that's my background.
So kind of back to some of that carnival stuff. I want to go back there, and we'll kind of go through, you know, all of this, and there's some other stuff in there that we'll go through. But, you know, it's not a – how was it, like, school-wise? Because, I mean, so you said you still do it, and you were around it a lot as a kid, obviously. Was it, like, did you have one school, or did you kind of move around a little bit?
No, I'm not a gypsy. I tell people that it's not a gypsy life. It's and it's not a circus. You know, and living in Licking County, I always tell people, you know, I was just on the other side of the 4-H. You know, you guys did the 4-H stuff. I was just on the other side of the fairgrounds, hanging out with my people. So same schools. I only went to I went to a school in Cincinnati, went to Lakewood, and those are the only 2 schools I ever went to. So it typically was my dad would start work in about March every year. I'd see him, you know, during the week, maybe 2 or 3 days. But they would, when I was younger, they would do the IAPA or the IX show in Cleveland. It was it's a indoor thing that would run from like the 1st of March through Easter every year.
Oh, wow.
So they were there for like 4 or 5 weeks. I mean, but we would go up on the weekends and visit him, and I'd get to run around and do all the rides and different things like that. And then, you know, come the end of school, like when I was in school, we got out like in June. Like, it was always like middle of June maybe that you would get out. Now it's like they're getting out like Labor Day or Memorial Day weekend. Like, they're getting out in that time period. So be weekend warriors, go out, you know, help my dad. You know, I joke with people in that, like, in carnival years, I'm like a lot older. I'm like a 70-year-old man. You know, from about the middle of April till July 4th is like Ohio's festival season. So that's where you see like your Strawberry Festival, your July 4th festivals. And then right after July 4th kicks off kind of the fair season. So Pickaway County, Circleville is the only county in the state that has a fair before the 4th of July.
Okay.
So they have a fair like late June, and then it kind of idles down so everybody can do their 4th of July. And then it picks up fair route from there, from fair until pretty much Lancaster in October. Lancaster's the last fair of the year.
Yeah, I guess I never really thought about that part of like how many there like festivals and fairs there are, even in Licking County alone. I mean, it spans like, especially like you said, that July 4th to like August, end of August especially. It's like one after another, because my nieces show animals too, so it's like you're at this fair, then you're at this fair, and it's like back to back to back.
And it's funny because everywhere you go, you meet all the locals, and it's always it's fair. They don't call it the Madison County Fair or the Butler County Fair or the Hartford Fair.
Yeah,
it's just fair to It's like I do. You know, when I was a kid growing up, we did probably I mean, we would hit a fair the last week of July, and we would do fairs until until Lancaster.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, we would do a lot of fairs. I mean, but now my dad's kind of idled back, and he only does like 4 or 5 fairs now. They're long, and the money's not great. I mean, you can get a festival where you're Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and you're on to the next, and you're anywhere from you're home Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or you're back to wherever kind of your hub is. He kind of operates out of the Lancaster area when he's here, but a little bit of downtime. And then from there, it's back to another festival. But then also it's less on the employees. Festivals are typically, Thursday, Friday, you're like a late opening, 4 to 11,
Yeah.
Saturday all day. The county fairs are 11 to 11, Monday through Friday, Saturday. Some are Sunday through Saturday. So it's a wild life to live. There's a lot of stories out there that can be told, but you learn a lot. I mean, you see a lot of things in your, you just see a different perspective of life.
Right.
And so, my dad has 3 siblings. 2 of them are in the same business. And then on my mom's side, she had 4 siblings. They were all in the business. So, where you might only see a cousin, once a year, twice a year, maybe 3 times a year, whatever it may be. I have cousins that, we'd run for 8 or 9 weeks in the summer together. We'd see each other from the day we got out of school until it was time to go back for like 2-a-days. I literally started playing football just because I wanted to get home. And they were like, oh, these things start, a month before school. And it was like, keep working the carnival or get home and get to hang out with friends. And it was like, I think I'll take the latter of that. I'll head home and figure out what 2-a-days are about.
Yeah, it is, and that's true. You hear, like you said, you only see a cousin once. That's family business, like legit. Yeah. Like you don't see too many. People say family business as in like dad did it or grandpa did it, dad did it, son does it now. No, like this is like most of your family pretty much does that, which is it's kind of cool, especially too as you get older. You start to not separate from your cousins, but you don't see them as much typically because of the fact of one, you're going different directions. You go to different schools even and stuff like that. It allowed you to almost keep in touch with your family a little bit longer too, which I'm a big family person. So it's not something that not everybody gets to do in terms of like cousin side of things or aunts and uncles. Like I still love my aunts and uncles to death, but honestly, I don't know the last time that I've seen a few of them. Like it's been it's probably been over a year because I'm so busy. It's just the way life is.
Yeah, no, there's all those blessings of being it, but then it's also created, issues because you're in the same business.
Yeah.
And, overall it's, something like in my 20s that like, if I went into a job interview, like I would not, like I would try to I would not bring it up. Like I would be like, no, like what did you do for work? Like, early on I would just say family business or whatever. And I wouldn't go into detail. Like now I lean on it heavy because it's like, I learned how to write contracts. I learned how to negotiate stuff. I learned the finance side of it. Everybody just thinks, well, the carnival showed up in the middle of the night, set up, ran for 3 days and then disappeared. So, it's just a wild kind of myth business. Nobody really thinks about it outside of like, hey, we're going to ride some rides and play some games and eat some fair food and see you next year. Yeah. But it's like, it's a business. I mean, I learned a lot of the person I am today is because of the things I've observed out there and seen the hardships of people and the effect of drugs and different, things on communities, in areas in the state and just the way that people treat you. I mean, Monday through Friday, if you run into me, I typically have a Licky Knox polo on, dress pants, and people look at you, they give you a little bit of respect there and have a conversation with you. But you catch me on a Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, I might have some jorts on, a T-shirt with some holes in it, some shoes that have seen better days, and you get a little different reaction from people, and so you kind of realize that, I think it's David Goggins that says it, like, everybody has shit. We just dress it up different. And it's like, I like to live with that mindset of, like, we all have shit. I don't know what your shit is, and you don't know what mine is, but we all dress it up, and let's just be humane to each other, and kind and caring. And I really think I try to model the way that I treat people off of that kind of thought process now.
Yeah, it's like the whole thing of don't judge a book by its cover, because I feel like I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like anymore today, it's starting to become more and more common, especially with social media and everything, where like you already have your opinion of someone within like the first 10 seconds, which I feel like is somewhat natural. Like your brain's automatically going to create something of that image, that person, but it's not allowing that to be the end all be all. Like, and it's like you said, you get respect if you're in, your polo and khakis or dress pants and whatever.
Yeah.
And it's a whole different, it shouldn't be that way. And it should be more like talk to the person, figure out who they are before you go judging who they are. Now, you could talk to somebody and also at the same time be like, I really don't like them. I don't like what they stand for. Like, that can happen.
Yeah.
I get that. But at least you gave it the chance to get to know who they are.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I had this class in my master's is a master's in science management through OU. It's kind of like an MBA, but within the core, or within the, I guess it's 36 credit hours, you get to pick. You have to take a management certificate, which is a total of 4 classes that make that certificate, and then each student gets to pick 2 others from a list of 9.
Okay.
Which gives, like, if you're in like a healthcare field already, you can pick a healthcare field thing. If you're into like third-party logistics and you're like working as like a packager at like a third-party place, you can take 3 classes that are focused on that. So you can pick and kind of build what you want this master's degree to look like for you. So one of the classes is about like analyzing your decision making. And I kind of like, when a class first started, I was like, analyzing my decision making. So you go into like learning about system 1 and system 2, like thought process. So like system 1's that quick of like, you like, who's your favorite sports team? NFL.
Probably if I had to pick one, I'd go with the Bengals.
Okay, so naturally you see somebody in yellow and black with the Steelers jersey, and your mind tells you, like, I don't want to have a conversation with that dude.
Right.
Like, I want to be far away from that cat as possible. But like, even how those things go into like business decisions, and like the class was really interesting to kind of sit back and just the different things that you the traps that your brain falls for when it comes to decision making and judgments and different things like that. The class was very like, at first I wasn't sure about it, but as the class went on, it was like, oh, this all kind of makes sense of like, you get that initial no, but then you have to like combat people's system 1's thinking process. So they anchor to different things, or they had an experience with somebody, that they don't even realize is triggering the way that they respond to you. Like when you meet somebody from an area, maybe you went to that area and had a bad experience in that town, but then they say they're from there. So you naturally, your brain associates that bad experience that you had there with this person now. And you got to like unwire, knock that down and get to the root of it, undress the situation.
What do you think is like the best way, in your opinion, to kind of unwire your brain to be that way? Like, I know it's not something that can change overnight. It's obviously, I'm assuming, a slow process, but what do you think? Like, or is there anything you learned from that class to get that to that point?
I think, being self-aware, acknowledging that, hey, I thought that way. It's not the best way to think. And I was wrong. Acknowledging, just having that self-awareness of, I was wrong. That's not the most sound thought process to have. So I think things like that are important, just self-awareness. I mean, I think if you lose self-awareness and you become about I, and you just think, hey, no matter what I say, I'm right, you're wrong, I don't really care. And just listening to people. I mean, just sitting back and, taking the time to hear somebody out.
Big reason I do the podcast right there. I love just listening to people, because that's what I think I talked about it in, I don't remember, one of the episodes lately, and I talked about the fact of that's why I kind of still do the podcast. 1, I want to put this out for other people to hear, and 2, I'm learning every single episode, even if it's just an episode where I record myself, like solo episode, I learn something like, oh man, I'm using too much, or like just like how to talk, that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. Like, and it's the big reason that I still do this. But I kind of wanted to also, you touched on your priorities changed once you had a daughter, I believe. Kind of take me through like how it changed. Like, what was the process like? We talked on the phone, so like before this, and I kind of have some stuff, but I kind of want you to tell the story of how you were in your 20s, for say, to like, once you had your daughter, and how your priorities and your perspective on things changed.
Yeah, so my daughter was born June 18th of 2012. Her birthday always kind of falls around like Father's Day weekend. So at that time, the plan was I was about to graduate college. I was going to start applying to the federal government, try to get in there. So she was not a year old yet. So fast forward to 2013. At this point, it's February of 2013. I got hired at the county as the safety coordinator in the HR department. First big time job, dress pants, all that stuff. Didn't really have any work experience that associated to like working at the county. Was very blessed and fortunate to get that job. So I got hired there in February. Started March 3rd. March 18th. We had my daughter was just shy. She would have been 9 months old. She had like eczema on her arm. We thought like, something was going on with her arm. She was like always clawing at it. She had like, it was just like you could put a sock over it. She would always get to it. So have an appointment at Children's. Go to Children's. And they go, hey, we're just going to do an MRI. Her pediatrician thought maybe she dislocated her shoulder in the birth canal. And she had like a pinched nerve. And that was causing this issue. So they wanted to do it. So, you go in, they put a screen up. She was sedated because you can't do an MRI on a baby that's going to be moving around. So she's sedated. It's a bigger procedure than what it would be for us. So she ends up getting on the board, and you're like tracking them by their color, green, yellow, red, blah, 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 all the way through like recovery. Well, in the middle of that, she just drops off. Like her name's taken off of there. And we're like, okay. So we go up to the front desk like, hey, our daughter's name dropped off the board. And they're like, this is 2013, which is crazy to think, but they're like, go over to those pay phones on the wall. The third one's going to ring for you. It was like we were in a movie. So go over to the phone, and we're like sitting there. We answer, and her mom at the time, her mom grabs the phone. We weren't together.
Quick pause.
Okay.
Dude, get out.
You got through that hole.
You little shit. All right, sorry about that. I had a dog interruption, but
No problem.
Go ahead, continue where you're at.
So we're there. The phone rings. Her mom answers it, and they go, "Hey, the MRI tech, he noticed something. He just wanted to get another photo, and so he's going to bring her back in. And they were getting ready to move her to recovery, but he noticed like something. He just wanted another look at." So we're like, and okay, so I'm 23 at this point. 2013. So I would have been 24. So, all right, no big deal. They're just going to take another photo. Okay. So, we go sit back down. They take another photo. And they go, hey, we're going to take you guys I don't remember the time frame, but so somebody comes and gets us and goes, hey, we're going to take you to a room. We're like, okay.
What's your thoughts like at this point? Because like
I'm 24. I'm not probably thinking I'm thinking, okay, we're at a hospital. Yeah. This is what they do.
Yeah.
This is the situation. So then I'm like, okay, like no big deal. So then they take us to a room. A nurse comes to us and goes, hey, we're waiting on a doctor to come out of clinicals. So we're like, okay, like once again, like I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
Like, okay, cool, like great. So another nurse comes in and goes, hey, is there anything we can get you guys? Everybody okay? And we're like, yeah, why? And they're like, and this nurse was just blunt with us, like, doctors don't leave clinicals. Like, they don't walk out of clinicals to go meet with patients. Like, it's not something they do. So I'm like, okay. This is, now I'm like alarmed. Now I'm
Yeah,
like, but
something's-
we're back. We're back with Layla at this point. So it's not
Okay.
like she's still away from us. We're in the room with Layla, my daughter, and you're just kind of like, okay, like, all right, well, she's being a normal baby.
Yeah.
She's 9 months old at this point. So then he shows up. His name's Dr. Jackson, Eric Jackson, I believe was his first name. And he's a neonatal surgeon, or I don't remember his exact title. He works at John Hopkins and Boston's Children's Hospital in Boston now, which could easily be looked up. Eric Jackson is his name. So he comes in and he goes, hey, your daughter has an acute teratoma mass, tumor, on her spinal cord between her C3 and T7 vertebrae. So he brings up the MRI. And so he shows us, and you see this image, and it's the best way I can describe it is if you take a straw or this pen and you had chewing gum and you put chewing gum somewhere on here, and a straw works better because you can push it down. So a straw is all it's your spinal cord. It's how you tell your body to do what you need it to do. Legs move, arms move, blink your eyes, everything you need to do, is transmitted down through your spinal cord. Not so much your eyes, but your fingers, you get the gist of it. And he goes, and we refer to it now as her jelly bean. And he goes, it needs to be removed. He goes, I don't know the growth rate or anything of it like that. This is March 18th. He's like, I've had vacation planned with my family for spring break. I've canceled it already. We need to do surgery. And he goes, and actually the date may not be March 18th. The surgery date was March 22nd. So this was probably March 20th was probably this appointment. And he goes, I'm going to give you a day. I got to get some stuff figured out, and so, and he goes, but we need to do surgery because I just don't know, the growth rate of this thing. I don't know if it just happened, I just can't tell you how fast, so we're like, okay. And then I don't remember who said it, but somebody had suggested a book called Raising Christopher Reeves.
I've heard of that.
And so I knew who Christopher Reeves was, but it was kind of that threshold. It was like, oh, he played Superman, and now he's not Superman, he's in a wheelchair, not kind of the depth of it. Fortunately, her mom, Layla's mom, I don't know if she missed that comment, but it never really clicked. And so that was where I was like, okay, this isn't great. This is pretty serious. So she ended up going into surgery on the 22nd of March. It was one of those things where we handed her off probably 6, 7 a.m. We were given a phone in the waiting room of Children's in Columbus, which we're very fortunate to have in our backyard. They do a lot of great things there.
I want to interrupt for a quick second, though, because you're, 24 at this point?
Yep.
So you're young as it is. I mean, and this is your only child at that moment, your first child at that moment. What's the mental side of things like for you? Because I like to talk a lot of the mental side of things, and I feel like you'd be good to talk about the mental side of things. I mean, obviously, like you said, you started to pick up on the fact that this is serious. This isn't just whatever, a blowover type of thing. What's the mental side of things like? And just kind of take me through that process a little bit.
So the mental side of it at that point is like probably why me, probably that initial kind of self-blame, blaming myself. Her mom and I weren't together. And so, I had visitation. I was seeing her frequently. It was probably 3 times a week I was seeing her. And I guess maybe a story of maybe my life is, things just don't ever seem to just go as planned. Like, it doesn't matter what it is, if it's job related. Mm-hmm. Things don't, if I'm doing a project at home, things don't go smooth the first time. I feel like some people have that luck where it's like, oh yeah, I replaced.
You might get one every, 20.
Yeah, but I'm just always felt like I'm one of those people of like, why, what did I do to deserve this situation? Like, and more so of in that situation, why her? Like, it could be me. It's one of those things where I'm just like, why me? Why us? And so, but I'm out of control. I'm not in control. I guess the situation's beyond me at this point. Just hoping and praying and wishing for the best, hoping for the best.
Yeah, because there's not a whole lot that you personally can do.
Yeah, I mean, we'd ask questions about, the statistics of this, probability, what we were looking at. And prior to surgery, we met with him the night before the surgery. And he pretty much said, hey, I sent this to a lot of people that I did like residencies with. Back in England, I did a residency, sent some stuff back to Boston. We've never seen this. Wow. So we're like, statistics are out the window, probability. Does she make it? That's the question. Like, does she even survive this? And so it's one of those things where you're like, you just buckle up. Mm-hmm. Like, and I'm one of like, and it's probably not my best trait. I guess when I was younger, I probably thought it was my best trait, but I'm kind of one of those people of like, put my head, like, when you're in a fight, like, you just put your head down and you just battle. Like, you figure it out. Like, I'm one when it comes to like sports and things. I'm probably not one like to be like the hoorah guy. I'm kind of very even keel for the most part. If I need to lead, I guess probably just lead by example, instead of kind of be like a big speech guy. Right. So it was one of those things of like, whatever you need to her mom and her, her family, and was kind of like, I'll do it. Just, whatever you guys need. You guys need drinks from the cafeteria, because you're just in this sitting like idle point. So, we end up, they put us in the room, we hand her off. They give us a phone. They go, we'll call every 90 minutes. So we're like, okay, cool. So we probably get 1 or 2 phone calls, and then by that point it's like 8 a.m. So then the staff starts rolling in. So our updates start coming through the desk of the ladies that work the front desk. And then so closing times probably comes around to like 8 p.m. They bring the phone back. Hey, we're leaving. We're done for the day. They'll keep calling you every 90 minutes. So we got updates throughout, hey, we made the incision. She's asleep, blah, 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 all that stuff. And I think the surgeon finally came out. He probably came out around 11. It was right around midnight. He finally came out and met with us. She was in recovery. And she ended up... He ended up coming out talking to us. He thought he got like about 60% of it. The tumor, so like with us, if you and I were found to have like a tumor like that, when they take us into the operating room, like they could hook electrodes up to our fingertips and our toes. So before he would cut anything on like us, they would send like an electric charge from like the material to see if it like connected to anything else in your body. Well, she's 9 months. Those motor skills weren't developed. So there was no connection to any other part of her body. So he had to base it off of kind of looking at it and observing it and trying to make a determination if it was, spinal or if it was tumor. So, surgery started at like 7 a.m. He didn't get done till like 11:30 that night. And I remember him coming out to meet with us, and he was kind of like jittery. And I was like, we were like, do you need something? And he was like, I would really like to go to the bathroom if that's okay. And so he comes back and he's like, I haven't went to the bathroom all day. He goes, thank you. He goes, the farthest I was away from your daughter was like 15 feet. He goes, I sent people to lunch. I sent nurses and techs and people to lunch and dinner and did all these things. And
this is a doctor that cares.
Yeah.
Truly cares.
And so it was not shortly after her surgery that he left Columbus Children nationwide and went to Boston, which is like one of the best places in the world. So like he saved Layla, but also showed he was the baddest dude in the business. We weren't really sure what to expect from her. They said she would be swollen for a while. I remember like fast forward a couple days, we're in like a NICU and she is, she's on a ventilator, eyes shut, eyes taped, face bruised. It was, I remember a doctor coming in and he goes, hey, I'm going to have to see if she's paralyzed. And I go, okay, well, I don't know how you do that on a 9-month-old. And he's like, I'm going to have to just put a little pressure on her rectum. And if she cries, then we know that she's not paralyzed because she can feel that. And we're like, okay. And like he was very like, and at this point we realized how far, like what we were into, and I was in the process of buying a first house. And so like, little things that I never thought about was like, okay, well, is it one level? Is there any elevation change inside that one level? How wide are the doors? How big is the hallway? So, things that I was, I want to buy a nice car. I want to have a big house. I want to have a pool. I want to, do all this American dream stuff.
It's giving you a whole different perspective.
Yeah,
at this point.
it changed everything real fast.
Yeah.
It put a lot of stuff in perspective. So then I'm like, okay, well, life's different now.
Yeah.
So I remember her crying, and I remember crying. I remember like, oh shit, like we're all right. What's next? So then it was like, all right, well, she may have some issues with that arm that she was really scratching at, and so we'll see what happens. So, and I guess the biggest thing I learned in that moment was, as I sat in the waiting room all day, and my mom was there, my dad was there, my stepmom was there, my siblings, and the amount of family that rotated through the door, that came and hung out just for a little bit. There's not money, there's not a job, there wasn't anything materialistic besides those relationships that mattered at that point. The point of people coming to make the time to be there. Friends from high school, people that I'll never, forget coming through those doors. That meant a lot. I mean, that made the day go by. Family that I hadn't talked to in a while, showing up, saying a prayer. Do you need anything? Just, and then that kind of was like, this life's not about accumulating wealth. Does it help? Yeah. Does it take care of bills? I mean, do I want to make X amount of dollars? But whatever I've done to that point that's made those people continue to show up, I need to probably go back and kind of reevaluate that and continue to do those things, showing up for people. Because we get caught up in, buying stuff and going on trips and doing different things like that. But the priority became, I want to be there for those people when they need me in a moment like this, because they were there for me and they made that day fly by. So that was probably the biggest takeaway from that kind of changed everything for me. Because it didn't matter if those people had all the money in the world. It was about the people being in the room, the time spent, the laughs in those moments, the laughs in those dark, hard times. Yeah. And I'll be forever grateful for those people. So that's my biggest, takeaway from that experience. My brother and I have 4 siblings. I have a brother and sister who we're all half siblings, but I don't know if you have any half siblings. Mm-hmm. Or sibling, or you do have a brother, right? Yeah. And so we don't view each other as like halves or anything like that. So I have a brother and sister who are younger than me, who are from my dad's marriage to my stepmom. Then I have 2 older siblings from my mom, from a previous marriage that she had. And so, my older brother and I don't always see eye to eye, but he spent that whole day with me. And he, he's a little different cut. He doesn't like hospitals, but like to see him tough that out and know how much those places bother him and cause him anxiety and all those things. No matter where we may be, personally wise, like he was there for me. I'll never forget that. And then like the cousins that roll through and different things like that. And just a very, very moving situation of kind of, you're young and you think, I guess you have forever maybe. Yeah. And so as you start to experience these life situations, you realize one day you'll probably be the oldest person in the room. Mm-hmm. And you'll be the one telling the stories. And can be overwhelming. It can be saddening. Yeah. To sit around and realize that, that uncle or that cousin or that grandma or grandpa, they're not always going to be in that room. And at some point you're going to be the old head. And, what kind of room will you have filled around you? Yeah, that's one of the things, going through a few of those things. Actually, 1 second. I don't know what the hell's going on with my camera lately. All right, back. Hopefully, I can actually, if not, we'll at least have that video. This is why I need to just not do video, but I love doing video. So, one of the things that you were kind of talking about, and I wanted to touch on a little bit, is you realize it's not going to be around forever, and that's one thing. And just kind of bringing up the different perspective of it, because me and Dante have talked about it lately. We've gone to 2 different. Well, I didn't go, but we've had 2 different friends that we grew up with that are gone now. And it kind of it does bring that other perspective of just not realizing you're not going to be here forever kind of thing. And I give a lot of respect to, like you said, your half brother, it doesn't do well in hospitals and stuff, and sticking it out. That right there is huge. And whatever, even if it wasn't your brother, if it was your best friend or whatever, whoever it is, just being able to put aside your own problems for somebody else to be there for them, that's huge. And I really like that you touched on the importance of that kind of stuff and how it helped I'm assuming it really helped you kind of get through some of those, like you said, dark times. Yeah. Fortunately with Layla, she ended up not paralyzed. She ends up having some left side weakness, just some hand stuff. If I don't point it out to people, they don't notice it. Really? But it's one of those things that you see. She uses, if she was going to be playing on the ground, to get up off the ground, she would push this way with her hand, which is it looks painful to us because she can get this piece to sit all the way down. Yeah. Oh. Almost like a primate. would.
Yeah.
But outside of that, she has a little hitch in her walk, and besides that, she's a normal little girl.
That's awesome.
She'll be 13, and so that's wild to think.
Yeah.
So she moved to Florida in 2018 with her mom and her stepdad, and dude, she scuba dives and does all kinds of stuff. She loves life down there. So I get to see her for Christmas and New Year's every year, and then she comes up for the summer.
Okay.
And so we, I wasn't sure how that would go with her and I, like, so much time apart, but it's like we just pick up where we left off, which is cool.
Yeah.
And she's, she didn't walk until she didn't crawl. So she was like a lap baby. So she sat on a lot of laps, and then one day she popped up off the ground and walked because her left arm just wasn't ever able to really use this to like crawl. So as soon as she could get up and walk, she took off, walking. And so everybody gets caught up in conversations with her, and you forget that she's 11 or 12. You think she's, mid 20s. And it's funny because she'll meet somebody new, and I, told them about her or whatever, and they'll go, okay. And then somewhere circle back a couple days later, and they'll go, hey, you weren't lying. Like, you get caught up, and because she'll start asking like some like in-depth questions of you
That like it's 11, 12, 13-year-old shouldn't be asking.
And it's because like I think when the kids were typically adventuring around, playing with something on the floor, crawling into the other room, she couldn't do it. So she just sat and listened. And I think that like, it's really, I think as she goes through life, it's really going to be a strength of hers. It's her ability to communicate and understand people.
Yeah.
So then I guess that's pretty much my 2013, 2012, 2013, first 2 years out of college, I guess first year and a half out of college. And then she went through a year of chemo after that surgery in 2013. So she went through chemo all of 2013 into 2014. And, chemo was a very enlightening time too. Went to Children's every day for that year. Every Tuesday she would have treatment, and that treatment could be you could be in and out in 5 hours. You could be there for 10. Wow. They typically weigh her, take her vitals, take some blood work, base the load of chemo off of her blood work. So every load of chemo was custom built. And we were very lucky to have outpatient chemo. I mean, there were some admissions in there a couple times where she had to stay. She had to get one blood transfusion in that year. I was fortunate enough to be a match. We were the same blood type, so I went to a clinic and gave my blood. I gave it a couple times, but she only needed a fusion once. She doesn't, I don't think she really remembers any of that. She'll see photos and stuff. The one thing that my big takeaway from that was, like, in the moment, I don't think anybody in my family realized like how sick she was. Like, you look back at photos now and you see like the eyes and different things like that, and you're like, she was pretty sick. Like,
well, and going through chemo, from my understanding, like it does a number on adult, let alone
I mean, it's built to kill.
Maybe one. Roughly one.
She after, actually, she got her report the first week of June of 2013. Her birthday was the 18th. I think she started chemo the week before her birthday. They let the port sit for a month or for a week, and then started accessing her through that.
Okay.
But it's one of those things, like you hear about somebody going through chemo and you see them and you're like, oh, they don't look good. Like, you can see a visible difference in them. I don't remember ever thinking that during that time, but then you look back at photos and you're like, holy shit, like, she was not good.
Yeah.
So went through chemo for a year. She got to ring the cancer bell, the cancer-free bell. She still lives with a piece of that tumor in her. It's never spread. It's never grown. It's grown a little bit, but nobody can really say if it's growing in proportion to her growing. Like,
okay.
And I asked this question, and nobody will really answer, but it's like, you have metrics to measure kids on their growth. You know, they always tell you what percentile they are in. Is there any way to figure out the rate that she's growing and then do the same math to that to see if it's, I mean, and I'm not a doctor, but it's like,
well, it's a valid question, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, and so nobody's really, you'll get a head nod from a doctor of like, yeah, they think that, but they won't put, their backing on it. So, she hasn't had any other issues. It was originally she get an MRI every 3 months and every 6, and now we're at every year. So she still gets her treatment, or she still gets seen in Children's in Columbus. So when she's here to visit me in the summer, her mom typically makes the appointment for that time frame, and then we go and get an update. And knock on wood, she's not had any growth with it since the surgery. They've never went back in, she has an opportunity to do a surgery, which I think this is pretty cool. So when you do this with your wrist and you flex it down, there's 2 tendons here. Well, her wrist sits kind of like this naturally, but they can take one of these tendons down here and put it up here and pull it this way and up. But the doctor at Children's is like, the parents could want it, but the child has to sign off that they want it.
So can they technically sign even before they're 18?
Well, so it's not so much about them signing like legally,
but them agreeing that they want to do it. But like
they want to do it. Like parents can't just roll a kid in there and be like, "Hey, fix my kid's arm."
Yeah.
Like they're not going to do it. Like, and force her into the OR or whatever and do the surgery. So it's one of those things that's been on Layla's radar since she was like 10. We haven't talked about it lately. We'll probably talk about it at Christmas, New Year's when she's here. But like, she's kind of earmarked maybe her 13th birthday of like she may be ready to do this, because I do think she's a little self-conscious about it, so I think it's cool that they, is it what insurance cover it? Yes. Is it somewhat cosmetic? Yes. And so this doctor kind of puts the ball in the patient's hands to make the decision, which I think is an interesting concept of like, we don't have to do it. If you want to do it, we'll do it. But it's up to you, and putting the power in them. I think that's kind of cool.
Especially with kids. I feel like a lot of times, when they are younger, it's on the parents. It's whatever the parents want.
Yeah.
But I like that he's like, it's got to be a mutual thing. Like, is it mutual, or if she wants it and you don't, like, how's that?
Well, I mean, her mom would have to sign.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things. It's like, when Layla's ready, we'll do it. I'm sure we'll do it at some point. And like, the other thing I always told her mom is like, let's just get to healthy, and then technology's on our side.
Right.
Like, technology's just advancing. So, we don't know what will be around in 10 years or, 5 years. And so let's just get to healthy and safe. And then other opportunities that will present themselves to Layla to, correct her hand and different things like that, they'll present themselves.
Right.
So then, so March 22nd is kind of like a day that like I try to avoid. Like, I don't avoid, but I don't look forward to it.
So it was a different type of meeting.
It was Layla's surgery date. Then you fast forward to 2014. And that day comes around, March 22nd, 2014. I'm on my way to go pick up Layla for my scheduled visitation. And my mom's lived in Cincinnati. I've went down to visit her. Through school, I saw her every other weekend. She would make the drive from Cincinnati up to up to Hebron to pick me up. We do all these things. I get into college and those things, and so the visitations become, they're not there. You're not seeing her all the time. She came over to college and stayed in our apartment one time with my roommate and I. She cleaned. It was great. And then, life just gets busy, and so my relationship with my mom had transitioned from, spending every other weekend with her, to she was my car ride phone call. I think back, I don't know, before podcasts and everything were out, music, I'm all right. I like music. It doesn't make or break me. I'm not somebody that can, you turn on a song, I'm going to sing every word to it. But when I would drive, I would call my mom. We just talk, catch up. So our relationship it had transitioned to more of a verbal kind of thing, not a physically seeing you type relationship. But like, I could always look forward to calling her. We would talk. My whole life, my mom battled a drug addiction, not like heroin or anything like that. She was more of the downer type, the Xanaxes, the different pills, opiates, different things like that.
When would you say that like you kind of came to that realization?
I remember being probably 9, and my cousin and I caught her snorting cocaine. And I'm very fortunate that I was blessed with a stepmom. She's Nancy. She's one of the greatest human beings I've ever met. I'm very blessed. She never missed a game. My dad missed games. My mom missed a lot of shit. But Nancy, I could always find Nancy in the stands. And that means a lot. I mean, she set the bar on, blood's not, family's not always blood. And we run into people now, because she's from this area, born and raised. We'll run into classmates and stuff, and, oh, this is my son Michael, and they'll do the math real quick, and they'll go, oh, we remember you being pregnant. Yeah, your senior year. She wasn't pregnant. She was just a normal kid. But they, like, we don't give any insight into it. And Nancy and I do have similarities, dark hair, dark eyes, but she's just a true blessing, Nancy is, and she really, I end up marrying somebody who has kids, and she set kind of the threshold of and the expectation of what a step parent should be. I don't have any of those nightmares, stories of like a horrible step. No, like it's
like mom.
Yeah, it is. And I don't, I could never date a Nancy. Like, I joke, like, there's the word mom, and then there's the word Nancy for me, and it's like Nancy is like another, like, Nancy mom. Like, they're the same. Like, that's my Nancy. Like, I could never, if somebody was like, she could be perfect, and she'd be like, my name's Nancy, I'd be like, next. Like, it's just not gonna.
Yeah, I know what
it's not going to cut it.
Yeah.
And so, my mom, I remember her like I remember seeing her like doing cocaine on a mirror. I was probably 9. I mean, I remember it pretty vivid. I remember her like, she didn't like openly use in front of me. Like, I walked in on her. I remember after she like left the room, I remember going into the room and finding it and throwing it in the woods. So like, I naturally knew like she shouldn't be doing that at an early age. But very fortunate with her that like when she was clean, and I'm sure this is a lot of people with addiction, it's everybody. When they're good, and you realize it as you get older that people have things that they don't always share, and it's kind of back to that David Goggins thing of everybody has shit, we dress it up. So my mom had a problem, and when she was clean, she would talk about that problem, and she was very transparent about like, I can't do this for you, Michael. I can't do it for your brother. Like, if I want to be clean, I gotta want it for myself, and I can't. There's nothing that can make me want it for anybody else but myself. And if I don't, I don't. And I think that semi freed me of the burden of like I had something to do with it.
Okay. Yeah.
But at the same time, I realized that like I have traits in me and characteristics and things that I do that probably go back to seeing her use and maybe my impact on it. Like, I wouldn't like if something bad happens or something that I know would impact her negatively if I shared it with her, I would just keep inside. Like if I didn't do well at something, or if my dad said something, or whatever it may be, I would always err on the side of like, I don't want what I share to be the downfall of her to use again. So, because I don't want her to fall off the map, and I want her to stay good, and I want to have a good working relationship with her. And that's carried into my personal life with dating and being married, that I would, if something bad had happened, I wouldn't always share it up front. I would kind of skate around it because I don't want to rock the boat. I want to keep the boat headed, towards the North Star, and keep everybody smooth and everybody pleased. And I'm big enough, and I'll kind of, put this on my back, and we won't. But then I've learned with time of like, that leads to more issues because, those things accumulate, and at some point they fall out of the closet of like, and it, it may just be a kid's behavior, or, hey, I did this thing, I'm not so happy about it. But I wouldn't share it because I wouldn't want to rock the boat. Right. So I have learned over the last, probably 5 years of like, hey, if I need to tell you something because you need to know, I need to just tell you. And if it negatively impacts you and you go in a spiral or whatever it may be, that's for you to process and figure out. I can't be held responsible for your reaction. All I can do is be honest and forthcoming.
Because keeping it in isn't helping you either.
Yeah, no, I mean, no, you're bearing it, and so I probably use this analogy quite a bit. I have like two core analogies that I fall back to. The one, and somebody will probably criticize me because they're like, that's not an analogy, and I'll be like, well, you're probably right. I don't ever want to live a life of, say this house is our life. This is life. I don't want anybody to ever come in here and open up that door, that closet door, and all this shit fall out on the floor. And you have to own up all that shit in that closet. And I feel like there's a lot of people that get caught up living that lifestyle of like,
just keep shoving it in.
Yeah, they got all this wild stuff that nobody knows. Mm-hmm. And you like, you see all the, not crime, but just the podcast about people living second lives. And, there's like the guy in Wisconsin right now that just turned himself back in. He faked his own death in a kayaking thing, moved to Europe, and they found him in Europe living. And it's like, what did that guy's closet look like? Yeah. Like how bad was that closet that he planned fake his own death and run off to Europe? And father of like 3, and it's like, I don't ever want to be that guy. Yeah. Like, no. I don't ever want to have the closet full of wild stuff that's about to fall out. So that's kind of but circling back to my mom, I knew early on, I mean, it was pretty obvious in my family, it led to my parents' divorce. My dad's never been an addict or anything. My dad's been great. Our relationship's been up and down, I think, like any father's son as you get through life. But my mom was always somebody, because she was so transparent about her downfalls, that you always felt like you could go to her. And it wasn't just me, it was everybody kind of in our family. But you could go to her and you could get advice and share things. And you knew it wasn't going to be judged, because she came from a place where she had these flaws, and she was honest about those flaws, and she'd shoot you straight. And she'd just be real honest with you about, what she thought, what you needed to do. But you always felt I always felt like she could cleanse my palate of whatever was stressing me, whatever was weighing heavy on me. She had the ability to kind of reset me. So I'm driving down to pick up my daughter on March 22nd, 2020 or 2014. And I'd like called her and she didn't answer, which I thought was odd. It was like almost noon. Pickup time was noon, and I thought that's weird. So I called my brother. She lived with my brother at the time. And I called him. I said, "Hey, has Mom been up yet?" He's like, "No, I'll go down and wake her up. Are you okay?" I said, "Yeah." I said, we typically talk on Saturdays when I drive down to get Layla. I said, so I was just kind of looking forward to talking to her. So he called me back crying. She was like, she passed away. She was in bed. And said, "No, you're joking." And he goes, "No." So I get to hug my daughter, see her for like 5 minutes, and then like, fuck, the whole day's changed now. Like, I'm 25 at this point. So turn around, drive home. My dad and I hadn't talked a ton in that time frame. And so I called him and I told him. And I don't know if that's the first time I heard him cry, maybe. I'm not sure. I think it was. I don't remember any other time. And he said, "Well, what do you need to do?" And I said, "I need to go to Cincinnati." I said, I might have to go. And he said, "Okay." So he came and spent some time with Nancy. They were actually divorced at this point. My dad and Nancy were divorced. And so I went to Nancy's house because it was on the way. I was living in Heath. She lived in the Hebron area still, Millersport. And so I went to her house first. And I told her. And so then once again, I'm just like, I just can't catch a break.
So let me get this straight. This is the exact same day as a year later from your daughter's surgery?
Yeah. Ooh. Yeah. So, yeah. So I end up going to Cincinnati. And then once again, it's kind of became a theme the more that I think about it, sitting here talking it all out with you. It's about the people in the room again.
Yeah.
You get back to that. And you once again, money doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Cars don't matter. Houses don't matter. It's about those people in those rooms. I get there late. The coroner held removing her body until the majority of my mom's family got there. When we get together, we're my mom's side of the family's probably 30. I probably got somewhere between 30 and 40 first cousins. I think I tell people 38. And a lot of those people are in that room when I get there. Now I was late getting there because I was coming from Columbus.
Yeah.
But once again,
that's like a two.
Yeah.
My
dad drove it. I remember getting a 6-pack of Bud Light. And I remember just kind of sitting in the passenger seat. We took my sister's car. She had Train's album in, Tears of Jupiter. Do you know what that song's about?
Yep.
Had no clue, and that played. And I just thought, fuck. So I listened to that album a lot. And my dad and I talked. We cried. I remember telling him that I would and we've never talked about it, but I remember being mad in that moment and saying I would trade you if I could still have her. She meant everything to me.
Yeah. Even
Even with all of her downfalls, she just had that way to cleanse your palate and make things better. And I'd lost that. And I felt like in that moment, I would never be close to those people in Cincinnati again. I felt like that was the puzzle piece that kind of linked us. And I thought, I wasn't sure how that would, what the future looked like. Would I still be involved in Christmas? Would I, she's the one that brought me to that. But then once again, you show up and you get in that room and you see all the people. And those people continue to come through to this day, and you realize it's about family. It's about your impact. And I think I wanted to do these things, and I wanted to go to the FBI, and I wanted to do these and all. I wanted to become a police officer. And I gave up a lot of opportunities, but I gave them up at my own decision. I think I don't live with any regret. I had an opportunity for the Columbus Police Academy when Layla was going through chemo, and the academy required Monday through Friday attendance, and I picked being there for her chemo over going to the academy, because it's all hours based and things like that. And I just was like, you know what, I'm good. And so then I had another opportunity later on to go to the FBI, and I flew and interviewed with the FBI. I met with 3 FBI agents in a hotel room for probably 2 hours. Got back, and the idea, I was in the background phase, and you know, the idea of going at that time that this opportunity came, I was going to have a son, and decided that no, I'm good. I don't want to do 5 months away from him and then end up somewhere in the country where I'm away from him. And I was already doing that with Layla, and I didn't like being away from her. So I was just like, I made it to where 5% did. I can hang my hat on that. I can be at peace with that opportunity, that I saw that to where it was my decision. The ball wasn't taken away from me. I mean, I guess it's like when you hear about athletes, like, there's some that get to walk away and retire when they want, and there's others that are forced into it, and it's kind of their hands played for them. My hand wasn't played for me, so I got to kind of walk, and it was like, I'm at peace with that.
And like after kind of all the things that you've already discussed, those weren't, you didn't get to decide those. Those were, like you said, the ball was taken. Like, you didn't get to decide with your daughter. You didn't get to decide with your mom. You didn't get to decide with any of that. So it's got to be a good feeling almost to be able to truly, and like you said, being able to, you made it where top 5%.
Yeah.
That in itself is a huge accomplishment.
Yeah. And
it's not something that's easy, and it's not just like anybody gets to do it.
Yeah, no. And it's, and that was my dream as a kid. Like, it was one of those things of like, that was it. Like, that's what I wanted. And then, my, kind of circling back to my mom, like, it came down to the people in the room again. And those people, brought joy to that day. I guess that's, brought that, we laughed and we're just a family, like people, and there were people in those rooms that had issues with each other and differences, and they put all that to the side. And I think it's made me, to lose my mom at a young age has put a lot of life in perspective. Relationships with people. I think I'm probably, more human. I'm probably more relatable. I cry at movies now. I get attached to characters. Crying's okay. I don't remember really crying much ever before that, besides like, getting hurt and different things like that. But, I think it's made me a better friend. I think it's just made, unfortunately, it's taken that loss to, I think, I don't know, I guess, have a better understanding of life and what's important once again. And, so it's, addiction is something that's close to me. There's a lot of woulda, shoulda, coulda, you hear about, and addiction is important to me. I think everybody has addiction. I think it's just difference of what we channel it into. If you ask me, I'm addicted to CrossFit. Like, I'm very open. Like, I need that. It's CrossFit will never be a physical thing for me. It's a mental game. It's a mental cleanse. I remember I'd started CrossFit in 2014, January 2014 at CrossFit Newark downtown, the old bowling alley. And my mom passed away that March. And I remember crying like during workouts, just mad, just, trying to figure it out. And like when something's weighing heavy on me or I'm at difference with a situation, a workout can kind of cleanse it, cleanse the mind. People like to run or whatever it may be. I feel, if I don't get to work out, I feel foggy. It's important to my CrossFit is way more important to my mental health than it is my physical health. You know, with the death of my mom, I think it's I don't have a fear of death. I have fear of leaving people with the questions that I've been left with to think about. I think about like my son and my daughter more about what their questions would be or what their life would be and what it would look like without a father. Those things are probably things that wake me up in the middle of the night that I've realized from like losing my mom, because I don't think that was ever a thought beforehand, but I also wasn't, you know, the father of a 5 and 13-year-old. But I think it puts it a little bit more in perspective of going through these and being at moments. You know, my son had a basketball game yesterday. My ex-wife, her mom was there. And it was like, it brought up like my mom, like she's not there. Like she won't, you know, she's there, but she's not there. Like that's a relationship that my son's never going to get to experience, right, of like the fun of her. So like, you know, somebody that I think I could have a really good conversation with, is probably like JD Vance. Like, you know, he talks about like, you know, I remember crying during his speech. And I don't know if it was at the RNC, but he was talking about like drugs and like how his mom wasn't allowed to have his kids. Like his wife was like, hey, we're not leaving our son with your mom. Like, I know she's just clean. And like now she is like, you know, he's amazed by the time that his kids get with his mom. And like, yeah, like I think the guy's a genuine guy. Like I know what he feels, and I'm living the other end of that spectrum of like raising kids with a parent or with a grandparent that would have been awesome. And he's fortunate enough that his mom came out the other side stronger, has made a difference. And now he's the vice president of the United States. Like that's a crazy journey. And I think it's inspiring to people that come from households of addiction, that like you're not, you can break, you know, generational curses and things like that, and family curses or whatever you may want to call them. Like you can, you know, you can become your own person. And like, you know, I think about it a lot, like, you know, with my son, like, and my daughter, like, I don't typically keep alcohol in the house. Like
that's kind of one of the things I wanted to bring up, because like, you know, a lot of people that have, you know, parents that maybe battle addiction, they don't even touch things like that usually after. You do still drink. Like it's not like, I don't want to say like you're an alcoholic, obviously not, but like you still drink, you still like, you essentially enjoy yourself still, but I kind of keep going on where you're just going.
Yeah. So, you know, I don't keep alcohol in my house. I may have a beer once in a great while in front of my son, like out to eat. I typically don't come home and like open up a beer. That's not me. But I do drink. I mean, if we're at volleyball, I'll have a couple beers while we play. But I typically, and as I've gotten older, I've kind of phased out of it. I mean, I used to go out. I think everybody's done that. But I don't, you know, I've never, you know, the impact of being around narcotics and addiction use. I've never filled a prescription for like post-surgery. I've had my ACL. I've had a vasectomy. Like I've had some surgeries done. I've never filled a prescription. I don't have any desire to go down that road.
Yeah, you don't even know if you end up down that road, but why? Yeah, it's something that you just don't even feel the worth the taking the chance.
Yeah, and you know,
because addiction's something that's what people don't. I think you know, I can't speak from experience or anything, but I think there's a misconception, a little bit of everybody thinks like, oh, like I'm strong enough, I'll be fine, and that's what I feel like everybody that's battled addiction.
Yeah, and I think through. You know, growing up in a carnival environment, I always joke that I've been discriminated by about every race there is, just because if you were to, do a social structure of, your town and went from like the highest person in the town down to the lowest person, well, if I told you to build me that table the week of your local festival, what's the bottom of that pyramid?
Yeah.
It's that carnival that just rolled into town. They don't think I'm in school. Like your first question was like, how many schools did you go to? Like that instant stigma of like, oh, you must have went to 40 different schools. Can you even read? And it's like, that's that stigma. So I always joke that like I've been discriminated by everybody.
Yeah.
Like, because it don't matter. You put me in any town, the bottom of the barrel is the carnival people. And, well, you look back and you go, well, what's that, how's that going to impact your life? What's that thing? And now I work for Goodwill. 75% of our people outside of our administrative office have some type of mental or physical disability that keeps them from getting full-time employment. Now that could be my daughter now. Mm-hmm. That could be my son. And those, I didn't get to become an FBI agent and save the world or anything like that, but the impact that I get to have with our employees and the people we serve and things like that means the world to me. Because just like I said, I come from a house where there was addiction, there was drug usage. I drank I think I had my first drink with my mom. I think it was like a Jack Daniels down on the farm punch. And I was probably like 12. Like I was pretty young. And that's the only time she ever let me drink. That was a one-time thing. I don't know why. It wasn't like she was like I was her drinking buddy or anything like that.
I know why my mom let me drink at that. It was to hopefully discourage me from drinking.
Yeah, but Jack Daniels down on the punch, that was actually a pretty well-tasting drink. Like I remember, like if you were trying to market something for kids, that would have probably been the one to go with.
Yeah, mine was a Little King. I don't know if you've ever had a Little King. They're not very good. No, I still don't drink those to this day.
I remember being about 15 or 16, and a couple of the bride guys gave me a little bit of Mad Dog 2020 bananas, strawberry and bananas, and it was the worst stuff ever. I remember puking. A lot of life lessons there, but
1 sec. Sorry, I don't know what's going on with this camera, so it's going to go.
So, so now I get to go to work for Goodwill, and
So what kind of real quick? What kind of sparked that shift? I know you talked earlier about just kind of never being content with. And I understand that 100%. I've had a few different jobs, and even I'm 5 years into my job. 5 years for some reason is like my point of like.
Out. I think that's common. I think there's some stuff generational wise that like our parents would work a job for 30 years, but like
my dad just retired this year actually, and he was 35 years, 40 years.
And they say our generation will be we're the opposite of that.
Yeah.
We're 5 and out or 7 or 6, 4, whatever it may be. So really. I was looking to get out of the sales,
okay.
And I remember my wife and I at the time, Goodwill had posted this job, and I have a pretty niched background. I mean, it's not law enforcement, it's not military, but there's a lot of military and law enforcement that I see like in interview processes and different things like that. And we'd look at jobs, and there may be a job where my resume matched the job 50% or 60%. And there was always like this grade. But then this Goodwill one came out, and it was like, you could take my resume and take my name off the top and put Goodwill and swap the Goodwill job posting and put my name at the top. And it was almost a match.
You were checking all these boxes that you didn't even realize.
And so I'm like, I want that.
Would you ever have expected that?
So realistically, like everybody, Goodwill, you think retail stores. You
Yeah.
donate stuff. You donate stuff, and they sell it.
Yep.
And there's a lot of opinions out there about that. And so I was like, I just want to get out of sales. This fits me. So I got in. So I interviewed, and I ended up with the job. And then I ended up, it's a job at first. You're trying to figure it out. And
Would you go in and start it? Like, what did you start doing there? If you're allowed to speak on it.
yes. So I am, I went in as I think, director of security and safety.
Okay.
So when I think of security, I think about security from like, is this work site secure of threats, outside threats, internal threats, blah, blah, blah. And then safety is like occupational safety, PPE, making sure things are safeguarded, different things like that. So I went in as that, and then quickly became, drank the Kool-Aid as our CEO would say. Most people think that Goodwill is like this big global brand, and like, there's some CEO sitting in, some off distant place and doing all these things. But our CEO went to Utica. He's in our community. We have a board of local individuals made up from all different realms of the business world in Licking and Knox County.
So there's like a CEO for we got, you said Licking Knox.
We have a CEO.
There's a CEO just for that one.
Yep.
Because there's other Goodwills like all around the country.
So
each one of like almost territory has their own CEO within it.
Yes.
That's okay.
So,
that's different than I think a lot of people
realize.
realize.
So a lot of people don't realize that. So we have our own CEO. He served on the board for from like the late or the early 90s until like the mid 2000s. And then the board at that time had asked him if he'd be interested in like a position within the organization. And he came on board and then has been the CEO since 2011. And when he came on board, had like right around like 200 employees as an organization. Just this past summer, we got over 600.
Wow.
So
what was the shift? Do you know? Like
the shift, I think, I would say, you get some people and, hey, this is, if he listens to this, he'll probably eat me up. But you
don't have to speak on it if
no,
you don't want.
No, I'll speak on it. So, they say the box, okay? And I think you put some people in that box and, those people operate in that box, and that's fine. They don't ever want to go outside that box. And there is no box because when he says this, so there's no box. Because as soon as you say think outside the box, what do you think of? A box. So I think that mindset, I think of growth we have this, our mission is to provide employment opportunities to individuals who face barriers, or to provide opportunities and resources and services to individuals that face barriers. The word barrier, that can give you the opportunity to do a ton of different things in the community. We do scholarships. We do a wide range of different things outside of the stores. We give vouchers out. We partner with LAP and give individuals that are reentering society from jail bicycles. We've revamped our background policy program to be less strictening on violations and to give opportunities to jobs. So he's a leader that if you tell him how it meets the mission and it creates jobs, he'll back it. So it's an opportunity to come to work every day and make an impact with somebody. So we have, in the summer we hit just around 600 employees. That drops off a little bit because we have a summer youth program that we run.
Okay.
But we do, we have a program where we have individuals with disabilities that are high school age kids, and we expose them to jobs in Licking County. We partner with people. They get to work for 5 weeks of their summer in a job with a job coach that helps them learn skills. That's most people nobody knows that.
No.
You have no clue.
Because I'll be honest, like when you said you worked at Goodwill, and like pretty much I'm saying 90% of people, what they picture is the store.
Yeah.
Goodwill. I didn't realize how much more there was to Goodwill.
Yeah, our retail division probably only has it's probably like right around like 200 employees. But I just said 600 employees, so where are those other employees? So we have janitorial services where individuals clean. We have like an online store where, individuals work and post photos. And I joke that it's like if you've ever watched an episode of Pawn Stars where Rick goes, well, let me call somebody. I know them. Like I know somebody that specializes in water bottles. They'll show up and tell us what this is worth. We have an office of individuals like that like they know artwork. They know collectible video games. They know books, and they got all these special skills and unique skills that you're like, they do an amazing job for us. And so, that is, it's cool. You get to work with some really awesome people and then there's always like, you get some weird donations and some crazy stuff that happens once in a while. But there's not one day that's ever the same there. And I think I enjoy that. I think that's where my passion comes from. I think the mission I full-heartedly believe in, because what if Layla was paralyzed? Well, what's that changed my life to be? Now I have a child that I probably have to care for forever as long as I'm here. So what does she need to be successful? A job to you and I is a way to make money, but to somebody, if my daughter's in a wheelchair and can't leave the house, that job's her opportunity to go socialize. Mm-hmm. And so, is Walmart going to hire her because she can't do anything? She rides around in a scooter, or she rides around by a joystick controlled by her mouth, or whatever it may be. Is there a place that would hire her? Because, how productive would she be? But at Goodwill, we provide those opportunities. They would find her a job. They would create something. Did I know that, before 2018, before I started there? No, I didn't know that. But to be able to provide opportunities that, to you and I may not be, jobs a way to make money, but to her, it's social skills. Those are chances to go out and interact and make friends and do different things and have some type of independency besides, old dad here, having to take her everywhere and do everything. But that's something for her to become her, and she can create her own identity of that. And so my ability and the privilege to do that for others means a lot to me. Yeah. It's, because I didn't think of life like that before her. So I'm blessed to do what I do with Goodwill. It's a great organization. We're allowed to, pretty much pursue any opportunity that we want that creates jobs for individuals. And that's what our mission is to create jobs. We want people to come work in our stores and develop the skills to be a cashier or a manager or a shelf stocker, and then go, hey, I want to go work at Target, or I want to go work at Walmart. We want them to venture out. We don't want you to be a lifetime employee of us. If you do, that's great. That's awesome. But at the same time, we want you to have opportunities outside of just us.
Yeah.
But we want you to go and have those skills. And we see employees go and venture out, and they come back because Goodwill saw them as a person, not just an employee doing a job. I look forward to, going into some of our stores and seeing our regular employees and having conversations and catching up with them and seeing what's been going on with them. And it's a good place to work.
Yeah.
So what you got next?
What's weird, I kind of wanted to talk on too, is, you touched earlier on like the mental side of things with the why me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether you're religious or not. I'm not super religious, but like it's one of those things of like, all right, you have this bad thing that happens. Why me? Why me? Or why her? Next bad thing. Why? Why me? Why me? And then it all leads to this, and it's almost like, not that you obviously want any of this to happen, but it puts you, it like led you to this position that you're in now, and it gives you that perspective of how to help others, how to be around others, and like just do that kind of stuff. It's really a weird. Your journey has been obviously not the straight, smooth sailing path.
Yeah, no, far from that. I, I have. It's not been smooth by any means.
But I feel like that's made you who you are. That's the best, like the good side of it.
Yeah, and I think you look back and you go, if this, the butterfly effect. If this thing goes this way, where am I? If I don't ever have Layla, what's life look like?
Yeah.
Do I, and it's like, what I've got lost in the shuffle, what I've got caught up chasing the dollars, what I, what would it have been? Would I have went to a party somewhere and tried a substance? And I wonder that too. There's a photo of two brothers sitting on a park bench, and I don't know if you've seen it. And
I don't think I've seen this one.
It's one brother's homeless, one's a businessman, and they meet in New York to eat or whatever. And I don't know where the photo is, but the photographer said, "What led you to become who you are?" And both men answered the same thing. My father was an alcoholic. The one guy's an alcoholic on the right, and the one guy on the other side's a businessman dressed, And I don't know if that's a true photo, if that was staged, but it's a thought that I've had of I do say poor me sometimes. I think we all do.
Yeah.
But, hey, man, you've had a lot of opportunities to go the wrong way. You've had a lot of opportunities to just pack it up, say fuck it, but I continue to, I guess, make the right turn, and I always, I guess another saying that I've kind of went with is, I continue to get dealt shitty hands, but I play them to the best of my ability,
It's the only thing you can do.
Yeah, and I think some people get played a shitty hand and they fold and they pout about it.
Yeah.
I think, okay, I got a shitty hand, fuck, but what can I do here?
Yeah, sometimes you just got to buff a little bit.
Yeah, how can I roll some of these into a better situation for me and make the best of them? And talked about bad stuff, and so I think the biggest thing is to seeing my son play sports, dude, that's a feeling that's unmatched.
Especially when they truly find something they're passionate about. It's like I have 8 nieces and nephews, and when I will go watch them, and it's like, certain sports you're like, they're just out there, and then there's also the sports where you're like, all right, you can tell you love this, and it's like, as a kid especially, to see a kid find something that they truly love, it's like one of the coolest things to watch.
And I think you go back to we talked about, I go back to the people that are in the room, people that end up in the room. Well, to grow on that, I think I talked about money, and we circle back to that, but I think we're all here on Earth, and it's is your footprint going to be negative or positive? Are you going to step? Are a lot of people going to look at you stepping into their life as a good thing or a bad thing? And when people look back, what's that impact? Was it good or bad from you as a person? And I think that my thing is when I step into somebody's world, I want to leave a good impact. That's just what I operate off of. That's a little thing that I believe in of I don't want to, and we're not, I'm not flawless by any means, but it's you can do two things. You control your effort and your energy. It doesn't matter the day, and I'm a big believer in that. And sometimes my energy is not the best. Sometimes my, I guess, energy, attitude, different things. But it's when I interact with you, I want to leave your day better than it was before. I don't want to leave you walking out of the room fuck, what was that? Like, don't keep me away from that guy.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to see him again. Like, and is every day, am I hitting that at the highest that I can hit it? No. But
I think it's recognizing that, though. That's the big part.
Yeah,
'cause you're going to
self-awareness.
have your bad days, like, and you're going to have your bad moments. Nobody goes through life, whether you start now or you've tried to do it your whole life, you never go through life perfect. Like, you will never find
Yeah.
perfection. You're going to make mistakes, you're going to make, have mishaps, but it's having that self-awareness, like you said, to recognize that and then be like, all right, whether it's change my attitude or energy now or like,
even just going back to the individual and being like, hey, yesterday
yeah, that's huge.
I was shitty and my energy came off to you wrong, and I just want to own that. Like, I apologize. I wasn't in the best headspace, but I just want you to know, like, it was nothing you did. Like, and I might have overreacted to whatever we were talking about. But I think that goes a long way with people too, where they're like, okay. And then, the other thing is like, I coached my son's football team this year. Like, okay, well, I coached him because is there a part of me that thought I'd be like the best person to coach him? Yeah, there's a little bit of that. And then you fast forward and you go to like their Halloween like parade, and like all these kids walk by and they high five you and, hey, Coach Mike, and you're like, once again, this is another one of like, you're bringing, you're kind of paying it forward, like you're being
Leaving that positive impact.
that positive impact again, and it's like I enjoy that. Like that's something that has been good, and I want people to, do I walk around telling people that my mom was an addict and all that? No, but if I wish I could do more if there's people out there that have a parent with an addiction and blame themselves, and I'd be more than willing to have those conversations about, I have similar experience. Like, I haven't watched the JD Vance movie yet, like on Netflix. Like, I know
I was going to ask if you
a lot of people have, and I don't think I'm ready for that. I've told a few people I haven't came to that crossroads where I'm ready to sit down, because I'm I saw a thing that said, like, from the age of like him being born until like 18, like he lived in a house that had the average annual income of $27,000 a year. I don't know how true that is, but I saw that. I the one thing I can say is, like, I was never I would say that people that I probably went to high school with would probably I was quiet, probably not real, and probably came off kind of probably gave off the wrong energy, probably a little cocky. But a lot of people didn't know that, that my mom, I hadn't talked to my mom in 10 days because she was on a bender or something, or like my mom.
People didn't know about the skeletons that were in the closet, kind of.
And so it made people portray me as something else. And I played into that because I, just like David Goggins says, like the guy in the suit, like the guy in the suit's no different. He dresses his shit up just different than you dress yours up. I dressed mine differently.
Yeah.
And I don't want to dress it up.
Right.
I want to be vulnerable. I want people to be able to feel like I'm a relatable individual in that, you have a common ground with me, because you do. I'm not going to judge you. You can tell me whatever you want to tell me, and I'll give you the best advice that I have. I'm only 35, but I'll try to help you through it.
Right.
And then I think, again, like, kind of back to it, like, if I didn't go through these things, I'm not that person.
Right.
Like, I'm not who I am, and I like who I am, actually. Like,
There's a very big cliche saying that a lot of people, oh, it's so cliche, but everything happens for a reason. I honestly, it's a really true thing. Like, we don't always know what it is. We never know why, especially in the moment. Like, you didn't know why you lost your mom at the moment. You didn't know necessarily why, and you may still not understand why. It may not be till 10 years down the line that it's like, it kind of clicked, like, not necessarily of why, but like just that reason that, or what helped propel you to whatever it is. I love the saying of everything happens for a reason. And I've tried to take that approach to my life more instead of the more victim mentality.
Yeah.
And it's not easy to do. It's very tough to do, whether it's something small or something big. The easiest thing to do is take the victim mentality of why me, or this is bullcrap, whatever. It's hard to look yourself in the mirror and be like, you know what? Everything happens for a reason. I don't know what this reason is right now, but hopefully one day I can figure it out.
Yeah. No, I support that. I back that thought process of, I have my best friend through grade school, and like his mom had a brain aneurysm when we were younger. Like he ended up living with his dad, and her health is always kind of questionable, and 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 so like if you would have asked me 15 years ago, like, oh, like who do you think's going to lose a parent first? Like I probably would have said him because of his mom's health, um, and and God's blessing, she's still, she's still here. But a part of like going back to what you're saying is like one day he's going to need me, and hopefully it's not for a really long time. But I'm going to be a way more better person for him in that moment.
You're going to be able to be that person in the room.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be that person if I hadn't been through what I've won. And I guess that's maybe trying to be the my cup's half full type thing, and trying to find reasons to justify it. But so I fast forward, and she passes away in 2014. I don't ever really spiral. I might have got into a little bit of drinking. I used to CrossFit like at 5 a.m. I just became restless. So I started drinking a little Captain and Sprite at night. And then, I don't know, probably 2 months into that, I was like, hey, I think probably my greatest strength is probably self-awareness. And I kind of was like, oh, buddy, this isn't you type thing. And so I just stopped. I was like, I got to figure this out. Like, I can't just start drinking it. And I was just drinking to like, kind of maybe just like kind of relax, kind of like stop my brain from just over-analyzing everything. And I ended up, I quit drinking. At one time I knew how long I went without buying a bottle of alcohol. It was like maybe like 2 years. That I didn't buy anything. That doesn't mean like if we were out, I didn't have a drink, but like to have something in the house.
Yeah.
I went away from that.
That's one of the biggest things that it's whether it's relationships, whether it's addiction, whatever type it is. If you eliminate the temptation, it kind of helps maybe not solve the problem, but it makes that problem a little easier to get away from.
Oh, I'm like that with junk food. Like,
I
don't buy it. I don't bother me, but you stick me in a house, in a pantry with that shit, I'm like, dude, that stuff, like,
the temptation.
Yeah, like my girlfriend's now, like her mom makes us dinner on Mondays, and she bakes and all that good stuff, and Sarah's like, hey, only send like 6 cookies with Michael, not 12. And it's like, because I'll eat all 12 in one sitting. Like, turn on Monday Night Football, and
it's real easy.
Yeah, like I'll smash some cookies, but it's like if it's not there, I don't need it. I don't need it. Yeah. No desire. So then I got married. I got married in 2016. Was married till 2020. I had my son in 2019, and bam, we're about 2 months from him being born. For Christmas, we got like a third-party ultrasound thing, and we end up noticing like a spot on his neck. And the woman was at that time I was coaching my stepson's AAU basketball team, and the woman that owned the ultrasound place, her son was on the team, and they had some family friends or whatever, and she goes, hey guys, like I typically like wouldn't say anything to you guys like in this because I'm not allowed, but she said you need to follow up with your doctor on Monday. Like this isn't like that's a spot like that needs to be looked at. And she's like, I would typically just send it off to whoever your doctor was on your paperwork. So we're like, okay. And that ultrasound was March 22nd, 2019. So once again, we're back to that date.
Yeah.
If I had to guess my death date, it's probably March 22nd. Hopefully not for a really long time, but I don't look forward to that day. I kind of wish those 24 hours through pretty fast. So here we go again. So once again, I'm kind of, okay, been through this once. Prior to my wife and I having our son, I was kind of on the fence about kids because I was questionable about, the memories with Layla weren't like the most like greatest memories of like pregnancy and everything. So I was like, I don't know if I have a desire for that again. So like we talked about it, and she was like, you deserve to be like a full-time parent, and all that. And I'm like, okay. So he so we go to the doctor. Well, he has a mass growing on his airway right here. So we okay, so what's that mean? So kind of do this whole thing again. So kind of start down this road. I think we'd asked the doctor at one point, shared everything about Layla prior to having a baby or like early on in the pregnancy. Like this was my fear of like, hey, what if I carry like a trait or like 1 in 11 million chance of like it happening again? I'm like, okay. So everything's going well. Pregnancy's fine. Then we got to that March date and that that ultrasound, and then come to find out he has like a growth on his neck. Once again, we were like, what are our options? So they tell us like you could have the child here at Mount Carmel, and then dad and baby get life flighted to Nationwide. And then from there you get treated at Nationwide, and then from there, like when mom's like ready to like move over to the hospital, she can move over there or be discharged because they don't do deliveries at Nationwide.
Okay.
And
I'm gonna quick pause.
Okay.
I'm gonna pee my pants.
I'm gonna pee my pants too. So
we'll go to the bathroom real quick and then continue this. All right, yeah. Sorry, we had to take that quick break because I was gonna pee my pants.
Yeah, I was not far behind.
I had a lot of coffee this morning.
So my son, he. So the option was Mount Carmel, get life flighted to Nationwide, do all that, or one of the doctors we saw did her residency at Cincinnati Children's and said, hey, they have a really good ENT specialist. Can you guys should probably go down there and like just kind of meet with them and see what they have to say. So like, okay. So we go to Cincinnati, meet with Dr. Rudder. He's like one of the world's best ENT surgeons.
What is ENT?
Ears, ear, nose, and
Oh,
throat.
okay.
Yeah. So we go meet with him. He tells us, hey, this is what I would want to do. It's called an exit procedure. It's where we bring the baby out on placenta support. The baby doesn't know it's been born yet. That gives us roughly gives us up to 90 minutes to establish an airway. So the problem is right now he's not breathing air, okay, which is normal, okay. But once he comes out, we have to get his airway going. So it's either through the nose, which is the most stable way, with like a breathing tube through the nose, or through the mouth. Or if none of those are available, we cut into the mass and create a trach right in there so they can get air. All right, well, here we go again.
No, that's something they wouldn't know until
they get that exit procedure going. Okay, so I do that, and then once we do that, the next day I'll go and I'll remove the mass. Okay. So, it's like, and then the biggest thing was his mom would be like 2 rooms next door. Like she could, as soon as she could get on a wheelchair, she could go over and see him. So, we opted for Cincinnati. And we, went with Cincinnati. They picked a delivery date, so because it had to be all scheduled. May 14th, we got a pick. He was born on my nephew's birthday, so it was kind of cool. They kind of share a birthday. And the night before we went to the hospital and everything, we stayed with my grandmother who lives in Cincinnati, my mom's mom. My mom's family's from Cincinnati. And we stayed there, and I don't know, my mom's family, like my grandma's house just always feels like home. I lived with her My mom went to rehab at one point during my childhood, and like my grandma just like lied to my dad and was like, she's just busy, she's working. There wasn't cell phones then. Like everybody didn't have a cell phone.
Yeah.
So for like 2 years, like my grandma just raised me. Like, and those are like my grandma and my aunt, well, my great aunt. They'd raised me, and so I have a lot of good memories being raised by her, and time spent with them. So like, I don't know, it's just always felt like home being with her. Feel like, and I don't really remember the feeling of like being around them with my mom alive. Like, was it the same? But it's always just kind of felt like home, and it's probably felt a little bit more like home since losing my mom. So the night before, the surgery, we go down, we stay with my grandma before we got to go to the hospital the next day, and Lee's Chickens, like popular. We did all this catering, and all my cousins came over, and once again, back to that theme, the people in the room. Like, doesn't matter what it is, all those people come through. Like, you don't got to talk every day. You don't got to, it's not one of those things of like,
you can be super close without being super close.
Yeah, exactly. And so they just continuously come through in life for me. Like and so like that fear that I had that I didn't really share with anybody about, like feeling disconnected and all those things, like when my mom passed away, were always put to the side. Like they were always like, these people always come through like tenfold, like like they just continuously show up for me. And so my son was born, same damn mass, same type of tumor as Layla. So I'm like,
and this is something that you said one in 11 million.
Yeah. So it became one of those things where it's like, once again, like, why me? Why him? Like, what's this future look like? So, once again, kind of put my head down, don't really worry about myself, try to take care of people, be the provider you're supposed to be. And, he was born on the 14th, had surgery on the 15th. His surgery was only about 75 minutes.
Wow.
It was all one mass, like it was clean cut, like it was just kind of like separating it from the airway and everything in there. So it ends up being, once again, it's the people in the room. Mm-hmm. It's the people that took their day off of work to come sit with you in an emergency room because, day one, you don't know how long that exit procedure is going to take. So my wife's in there doing that. I'm left out in the waiting room with, would it be by myself? No, I take a whole room. I have a whole corner of the hospital locked down again. Same core of people that were there 6 years ago, or 7 years ago when my daughter was born, in that room again, and it's like, this is what life's about. Yeah. It's about the people in the room. It's about having those relationships long term, putting other things to the side and focusing on each other and being there for each other. So we ended up doing 54 days, 54, 56 in the Cincinnati NICU. And ended up, thought he was going to get a trach, thought he was going to have like all these, thought he was going to end up with the trach and weren't really sure what his, like, if he would be able to eat. Like, we just weren't really sure how all this was going to work or how it was developed. And fortunately for him, once again, it's like dealt a bad hand, but it plays out pretty well. And that's kind of been the theme of my life, is like dealt not great hands, but they play out pretty damn good. Yeah. And so he ends up having like a little bit of a stridor, they call it. It's kind of like a built-in whistle. Like when he was a baby, he like pretty much whistled all the time. Like he just had a noise coming from him. As he's gotten older and grown, like he's outgrown it to an extent. But like when he's playing like football or basketball, like he gets going. Like we preschool, kindergarten, like you warn them and you tell them like, hey, but then the first time it happens, they're like, hey, Rogan like did this thing, like he was breathing really loud, and we're like, he's fine, like he knows life no other way. And he plays sports and he's into all of that with no issues. And he does well, but once again, kind of back to that theme of, like he could have had a trach, he could have been on a feeding tube his whole life. I mean, he could have really done some damage to his airway, but once again, he was fortunate enough that, dealt a bad hand, but like a joke about like showing him photos of him like when he was a day old, like what's he gonna have to say about it then? Like, cause he's gonna be like, that's not me. Like, yeah, that is. Like I think about like, remembering where I came from and like the carnival and like, never forgetting my roots type thing. And not judging a book by its cover and I think, not to kind of Goodwill gives me the opportunity to be a pillar of goodness to things that, I guess I've been a victim of, in regards to like addiction and disability in medical things. And so it gives me an opportunity to pay it forward, to impact people that were in similar situations of my own. And I really enjoy that. And there's not a ton of places that will offer that opportunity. And so that's probably the biggest thing that's like been impactful to me with like work and stuff. My son, like he goes to work and like, it's funny because like he's been at that place of employment, since before he was born. So like these people have seen him grow up and like, and he's like, how do those people know me, Dad? And it's like, it's cool to like that, once again, like back to Nancy of like, there's people there that are, family, but they're not blood. Yeah. And like they've been through the ride with me, and I'm appreciative of those relationships with them. And they've been through my divorce with me. I didn't think I would get divorced. I don't think most people get married with the idea of thinking they get divorced. And I think my always, once again, shitty situation, how do you play it out? You go pout and will this be the straw that breaks the camel's back, and will you spiral? And I think my biggest kind of the positive that I try to take away from that, like we co-parent pretty well. Is it perfect? No. But putting my priorities and my things second is, I think, important. Putting his, my son's first. And then I think my biggest takeaway from that situation is that I think the life lesson there is that like two people can be on the same path and in the same car, traveling the same road, but they experience that road completely different. And I think when I was younger, I think, well, if we're in the same car and we're driving the same route, we're going to see the same things. And that was probably a little naive of me. And once again, I think that's made me a better person to be like, hey, we're going through this thing. This is how I'm feeling, and this is how I'm experiencing life. Where are you at? Like, and I think there's Matthew McConaughey has like a thing about like talking about his wife being his best friend, and like sometimes she's a starter and he's on the IR, and like, have you seen that clip? And it's like that hits like that's where it's at. Like that's like a very realistic thing that I think maybe I was naive of at some point. But, once again, just trying to make the best of the situation. Right. And I think, this world's not perfect. Mm-hmm. None of us are perfect. But the goal is to kind of leave that positive impact on people. And I think as long as we try to do that, we end up in a position where, you have a positive impact on people, and they remember you for the good, and they, enjoy running into you and saying hi and different things like that. And I don't ever want to be that person that somebody tries to avoid in the grocery store of like, oh, let's go down a different aisle.
We all know those people.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
I want to be the guy that somebody's like, oh, hey, how you been?
Yeah.
Like, and looks forward to like, oh, well, I saw them. Let's stop and talk to them.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the way I try to live my life.
Right. Well, I got one final question.
Okay.
We could probably keep going for hours and hours. I'd love to have you on for another episode. I'd actually really love to bring you on for one of the Beyond the Surfaces. I feel like you'd mesh well with me and Dante in one of those conversations. But my final question is one that I ask all of my guests that come on the show, and I'm actually kind of really excited and curious to see what your answer is to it. But if you could go back in time and tell your 16-year-old self one thing, what would it be?
Be vulnerable. I mean, be genuine. Don't try to hide your flaws. And that's probably would be it. Just to be more vulnerable. I think if you're more vulnerable, people see the true you.
Mm-hmm.
You have more genuine conversations. You put ego aside. I think you can acknowledge wrong by being more vulnerable, and so there's probably relationships that are better developed, and so you're just probably put on a platform to experience life sooner instead of trying to create and present a persona that doesn't really exist or be portrayed a certain way. You're just more genuine, and there's less, I guess, probably acting. I think we all early on, I think you go back to those high school years and, you act, you try to fit in into a group and because you don't want to be vulnerable. That's the honesty. You're putting on a costume or a uniform or whatever it may be.
Because vulnerability in high school almost, especially as a guy, almost makes you look soft.
Yeah.
So it's like a cliche that you want to try and like stay away from being vulnerable because we don't want to be soft. We want to be, so we put on a front. We've all done it.
Yeah.
Like it's normal for a 16-year-old to do it, to fit in.
Yeah, and I think that's, I think, and I think maybe, I think another thing I'd probably tell myself, it's okay to be the glue guy. I think, like when I played sports, I wasn't the best athlete. I wasn't, but I think I was a little hard-headed and stubborn when it was like, if you want to be on a winning team, like somebody's got to block for a running back, somebody's got to set pick, somebody's got to rebound, and there's success in being the glue guy. Like, and so I kind of fought that, I guess, early on in high school of like, I'm not going to have all the receptions. I'm not going to, but you got to block. You got to do the small things. And I grew into it with some good coaching, but just to be more open probably. But, and I think, being the, I feel like I'm the glue guy at work. I am able to, I'm not the smartest guy in the room or anything like that, but I can hold a project together. I can, see kind of the things outside that need to be done in different aspects like that need to be addressed. And that goes back to, if I was the person in high school that scored all the touchdowns or scored all the points in basketball, like, would I have that view of a project? Probably not. Like, I don't know, like, because do they realize, does it, and I think, the running back with all the talent in the world, does he realize the wide receiver's blocking downfield? Probably, but doesn't understand how much work goes into that.
Right.
And so I think being that guy is kind of put me into understanding the work that has to be done in the background to be successful. And it's not always on the forefront of everybody's mind. So it kind of, to wrap this up, it kind of goes back to like, in an interview or whatever, I wouldn't bring up the carnival, but like I fall back on the carnival in sports like in a big way now, because I think as you get older, you get a perspective of like, that's what makes you as a person. Those are the qualities that have shaped you to be who you are.
No, I know it's that whole vulnerability thing.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's a different type of vulnerability. I think everybody thinks vulnerable is in like crying or anything like that, when it's not always that. It's just being willing to, accept who you are.
Be true to yourself.
Yeah, be true to yourself.
Yeah.
So Man, Michael, I really appreciate you.
It's been
It's
fun.
been an awesome episode. I definitely will have you back on. We'll dive more into stuff because like you can only cover so much in that time, and I wanted to let you kind of tell your story because there's a lot to it. But I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. But that's all we got for today's episode of the Roughnecks Podcast. And until next time, you guys know the deal. Life is hard, and it's going to knock you down just like a bull does to a bull rider. Don't let that bull of life walk all over you. Get up, grab the bull by the horns, and take control of your life. Roughnecks, out.